This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.
And welcome to another edition of I Love Black People. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing this journey. Actually been traveling quite a bit. Made it back home to Tuskegee University, my alma mater. I know many of you know that I graduated from Howard University, but Tuskegee is my first love, where I actually started the university journey, and I was able to return back. And one of the highlights was that we pledged $1 million for a Ralph Ellison Leadership Endowment. Ralph Ellison also went to Tuskegee. He's a Tuskegee alum, and he's the author of The Invisible Man, a very transformational novel, really capturing so much of the 20th century from the lens of Lilia, a Black, I'd say, Southern perspective through New York and everywhere else that The Invisible Man kind of lays out a picture. And I kind of related that story to much of our journeys. So if you get a chance, make sure you get a copy of The Invisible Man. It's definitely a great read, as well as keep following us as it relates to what we're working on in order to raise the $1 million for Tuskegee's leadership endowment. Also, we were able to get Tuskegee to commit to opening up a Bitcoin wallet. And again, as I say oftentimes, technology is neither good or bad. It's a tool. In this case, we want to make sure that we have all the tools possible to raise money to support Tuskegee and all the work that we're doing for this leadership endowment, but also allow Tuskegee to diversify, again, its ability to raise funds through crypto, as well as allow it to be in a position where, it's on the cutting edge of how philanthropy works. And as a HBCU alum, we all have much more to do as it relates to supporting our universities. One of the things I noticed back at Tuskegee was, again, Auburn University is a university one county away. Tuskegee's in Macon County, and Auburn's in Lee County. And oftentimes people talk about how well Auburn has done, but we got to always keep history in context. What Booker T. Washington did, and those who followed in his footsteps, what they did was really, miraculous and amazing in the heart of Dixie, to build a community that thrived for Black people all the way to now. And many Black towns and cities literally were destroyed, through Reconstruction, Jim Crow, and Tuskegee still, is still there. It's not going anywhere. And any of the things that we see need to be improved, it's our generation's opportunity and time to do something. Excuse me. So we need to make sure that we use as much of our resources and energies to invest back into our historically Black colleges and universities. And when I spoke at the convocation, I even made note of how many of the professors, they give their lives to prepare the next generation of amazing students. And we at least could find ways to donate our talents, donate our time, donate our money to alma mater. And that's one of the things that the current Tuskegee president said, Dr. Morris, even if you don't have funds, donate your talents. And I want to give a special shout out to, again, the folks in University Advancement and Alumni Affairs at Tuskegee that really made it possible for me to return and contribute back. And I wanted to say, hey, Philip Howard, thank you so much for what you do to raise money for Tuskegee. Even though you're a Morehouse grad, more power to the people. And then Kim Holland, a Tuskegee grad, is also the over Alumni Affairs. So I think it's important that we keep, these ideas of what we can do to contribute alive so that we can create, more opportunities for the young people who are coming behind us in these universities. Another big thing is that we've actually released another update of our I Love Black People app, and we want to make sure that we get as many people to download it. We're crowdsourcing Black-friendly spaces in 8 key categories. Those categories to include healthcare, legal, transportation, places to eat, places to sleep, childcare / education, finance, and beauty. 8 categories where we have like over 200 and some cities designated as key cities that we need to cover. And we want to make sure we have at least 3 choices of Black-friendly spaces in each of those categories. And we're literally bringing on people to help us to build out. A shout out to Sister JT, Sister Grace, and all the folks on our team. Alex Wafula, who's our lead developer, who's been making sure that the app actually does what we say it should do. And we definitely want to give a shout out to our database developers, Sister Yvonne Duchemay, and just the whole team. When it comes to the startup world, and I'm traveling to different events related to startup, it's a journey. There's lots of ups and downs, and I tell people, if you think corporate America is racist, well, Silicon Valley is no different. We have to do as much as we can to build, and that we oftentimes we don't have access to the same models of businesses that the Europeans that actually dominate the space. So we have to be more creative as well as resourceful with our space, but we also need to be driven. Entrepreneur in general. I'm not just talking about hyper growth venture capitalists funded startups, but business takes real time and effort. And I've been an entrepreneur many times. I think I lost count how many times. That's one of the things that people do in Silicon Valley. They talk about how many times they've been founders, but those of us in the traditional entrepreneurial space, from T-shirt businesses to selling ice cream or whatever we did throughout our lives, this entrepreneurial journey, takes a lot of effort. And I went bankrupt in 2003 with my dry cleaners. And I still remember I was dating a sister, and she said, "What would it take for you to say this thing failed?" And, I think sometimes we don't, when we look into these endeavors, how far are you willing to go? And finding something in life that's worth that struggle, that's worth that commitment. And I do say the word struggle because struggle is, as an activist, we talk about the struggle is eternal. And when I say that, that means that, again, every generation has a struggle, and we have to embrace it and then actually achieve all the things we need to. But suffering is not something that God would want us. And I'm not here to push particular religion on anyone, but literally suffering fools or suffering abuse is unacceptable. If you have those situations, you need to, remove those things or remove yourself from those things. So it's important that when we talk about entrepreneurship, we're analyzing the environment that we're in, the resources we have, the mission that we have, and make sure these things line up correctly. And these aren't things that are static. They're very dynamic. Things can literally change. When I had the dry cleaning business, You know, they came out with these dry clean depots, and it just took the margins and the money out of the business. So in many ways, we weren't able to effectively respond to that, and couldn't sustain the business and had to file bankruptcy. I had a property on Georgia Avenue, ended up losing that. And there's a lot of lessons in that. Did I wish I had learned those lessons that way? No. But I had been inspired to even the fact of buying property after graduating from Howard University. I literally graduated in 96 and bought a house in 98. So it was one of those things where I praise God I was surrounded by good, progressive brothers and sisters that were doing amazing things like buying houses in our 20s in a way that made it very possible for us to, in many ways, endure some of the mistakes we make in life and then be able to rebuild. So again, when I look at real estate, I know people are really big into real estate. I did a 201, 203K, a renovation loan. And back then, most people were living in apartments, not buying houses with front yards and backyards, or even buying houses I bought a house in a commercial district. So people were like, what are you doing? But many of those things that didn't turn out right, since we did those things early, it gave us some runway to kind of make some of these mistakes, learn from those and get it corrected. And I will say that to as many folks that are listening, that if something that you are working on is not working, do give yourself like a limit, like, hey, this is not it. And even working with people, it's oftentimes important to give people an opportunity to get it right. But once given that opportunity, if they don't get it right, they probably need to get going, or you need to get going. So it's important that we are always, engage with the actual process of business, and not just look at it as a outcome somewhere down the street. In order to get down the street, you're going to have to make it through a lot of obstacles and turns. So be engaged, be present as possible. And I know many of us, when we have businesses, we have multiple revenue streams. As again, Black entrepreneurs, we don't have the luxury oftentimes to have a safety net with, someone else's trust fund. Everything that we eat, I mean, I don't want to say kill, but we have to, like, everything we get, we're going to have to put the work in to get it. And I think it's important that we look at that as a way of understanding what it takes, and understand that we may have to, take the road less traveled and do things that are, quite unique. So again, this, like I said, all the things I'm discussing have been part of a great journey, and to be committed to I Love Black People as a radio show where we can actually share the experiences that we have as a community, and the journey itself is amazing, and be able to share different voices in that, and as well as the startup component of I Love Black People, where we're literally building solutions to solve problems in our community. And as you know, there's a lot of things going on in the world today as it relates to violence. And, I've had people ask me to weigh in on certain things. And I'll say this: I know that war is not the answer to any, and then violence is not a solution. So no matter what side or who you are, just know violence is a very horrible solution, and war is a very bad answer. And it's going to be hard to kill your way to a solution. And it's best to figure out other ways to solve our problems. And when we look at our problems in the Black community, and brothers and sisters being killed, young brothers and sisters being killed, we got to protect our children. This concept of vilifying our children is the same thing that happened to our generation as Gen Xers. They blamed us for the crack epidemic. They blamed us for AIDS. They blamed us for mass incarceration, when many of us didn't have passports. Many of us had no weapons made in our neighborhood, but somehow all these things happened to find their way to our community to our detriment. And instead of us receiving the sympathy of a community, we received its, ire. It's attack. So I just don't, what we need to make sure now that we're the adults in the room is that we don't vilify the young people who are coming behind us. They need our support. They need our protection. So again, I'm not saying be soft on any criminal activity. I think, first of all, we got to always hold ourselves accountable for what's going on in our community and not blame teenagers for anything in our community. That's one. But two, we got to be careful of some of these racist liberal policies. And I say racist liberals because some of these liberals do not see black folks as fully functional human beings. So they come up with these weird policies that they wouldn't apply to their own community, to our community. And everyone in our community should be held accountable. And that doesn't mean I agree with the prison industrial complex. I don't. But if we have young brothers and sisters who commit crimes, there definitely should be a way that they can be helped so they don't go right back into it. But if they're literally, apprehended by the police and then thrown back out into the community, and they just might do it again, unless we do some type of intervention that actually protects them. And again, I'm not saying that we coddle adults, but we should coddle our children. They're our children. They're no one else's children. And as we've seen actually throughout history, revolutions, big, changes, the young people have always been on like the forefront of that because they're fearless. But we got to make sure that we're protecting our children. Our children, our black children probably are the most unprotected children in the world. And we have to change that. No one else is going to come and save our children. We got to save our children. So, no matter what profession or business that you're in, there's something we can do. I think many people wait for the mayor or the president or the governor. We as private citizens have many skills and the ability to do many things to protect our children and our communities. And it takes us to do deliberate things. There being deliberate things being done to undermine our communities. We need to be doing deliberate things to protect our community. And even as a technologist, as someone who's involved in startups, I hear people talk about social media and how detrimental it is. But social media is not done by some Martians in outer space. They're done by human beings. The development work, the promotion of these things are done by human beings. We have just as many people who are talented in our community that can actually create social media better than TikTok. But we got to make sure that the best of our community is focused on solving problems in our community and not co-opted by other communities to solve problems or to elevate their communities. So even with our skills, we got to bring those skills back to our community. And again, we may not go back to Macon County, Alabama with our skills to live, but maybe we can visit with some of our skills. Maybe we can direct some of our attention and the energy towards figuring out ways to solve the problems that face Macon County as much as we think of the DMV area. So again, these are some of the things that as we were, looking at our journey, I'm a Gen Xer, so many of my peers have achieved so much in their lifetime and they're looking for more to do. And I think there's still, several chapters left in our book and our stories. I mean, if you're in your 40s and your 50s, I think we're at a point where we have a great amount of experience. We still are energized, as well as have the capacity to really make a difference in this world and to help those who've come behind us, as well as help those who came before us. I think much of the work that we do is in honor of those that came before us. But we don't believe in generational chauvinism. We know every generation has something to contribute and to be respected for. Now, there's no trophies, so being somebody who's been loyal and committed to our community, oftentimes there's no award or trophy for it, but we should do it because it's the right thing, just like our ancestors before us. They made these sacrifices knowing in many ways they weren't going to benefit from it, but they did it anyway. And we come from that background. Many of our heroes, we don't even know how much money they had. or how wealthy they were, because their wealth was not in some bank or in some monetary notes. It was literally in their conviction, their courage, and their character. And I think sometimes as we start looking at the materialism, or what do they call it, chases and the Joneses, or something like that, where people are trying to materialistically, achieve each other. At the end of the day, what does all this mean that we can't protect our children? What does it mean to have the political power and we can't keep the police from murdering our children, or other children from murdering our children? So we got to be careful that we don't get caught up in, some things that we were told that weren't true. And now, instead of, waking up and realize, no, and I don't want to say wake up, but once we realize that maybe some of these things aren't true, we owe it to our families and to ourselves to figure out something different. And many times we got to be able to forgive ourselves. Sometimes we commit ourselves to doing things and it doesn't turn out right. It's okay to say I was wrong. It's okay to try something different. At the end of the day, being right is probably overrated. We're trying to be successful. So to be able to realize that you're making a mistake or have somebody correct you, I oftentimes tell my staff that we do so many things that haven't been done before. I wish I had people I could just ask how to do things, and again, I don't have an ego like that. Like, I'd rather, listen to somebody else who knows what they're talking about, execute and get it done and be successful. So again, I think there's a lot of those issues that we've seen where, again, as we mature, we need to leverage that maturity to help us in a way that allows us to learn from these mistakes and, continue to be what we call lifelong learners. Again, I'm in the space with, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. There was no Bitcoin when I was in college. You have to be a lifelong learner. I'm a pilot. I fly. Again, this is something that you in order to stay current, you got to keep learning. You can't rest and say I'm done. You have to be fully engaged. Now I'm a visual flight rules pilot. I don't have my instrument rules, meaning I can't fly in clouds. I have to be able to see the ground. Even, I can fly at night. Oftentimes, again, at nighttime, you definitely can see the ground lit up from the cities and whatnot, and there's none of that glare of the sun. So a lot of times people think you can't see at night, but oftentimes it's really awesome in one of these, especially when the moon is out. But anyway, I'm gonna start to talk about going flying and how important learning is really the point I'm trying to make. So, again, all of these things are a part of this journey, and I definitely love to share them when we're on the show. And we're going to have more guests come on the show. If you're interested in being on I Love Black People, make sure you give us a shout out to info@iloveblackpeople.com. We're also I'm on LinkedIn. Skinner Liberated is my Twitter handle. I know it's X. I don't know if say X handle, but Skinner Liberated. And we also have I Love Black People app as one of our Twitter handles, as well as Instagram. So again, these are the things that we're working on and improving. And we definitely need more people giving us feedback on how we can maximize our app. Because again, our focus is making sure that we crowdsource these places. And one of the things we saw with many apps that are directories, people would complain that there's not enough information on them. So what we've done is made sure that we're not telling anybody to expect to find any businesses on our app. We're asking you to share. We're asking you to share your Black-friendly spaces so that other folks can benefit from the network of folks. I went to Tuskegee, as you know. I went to Howard. I'm a member of a fraternity. I have a lot of informal networks that help me make good decisions. And oftentimes people think, again, these directories about being tourists or travel, but really travel is just one form of vulnerability. As COVID taught us, you could be in your hometown and get sick and you're very vulnerable. You don't want a racist doctor and you just expect you have COVID. You want to have people who really respect who you are as a human being, so you don't get caught up in some weird experiment or something else going on. So again, we want to make sure that when people think about the work we're doing and empowering as many people as we can through this technology is important. The technology won't work without you making these recommendations and crowdsourcing. Accountable, start with ourselves. And being faithful means that, we believe in that, the fact that we've been called here to do something of note, and we have a responsibility to fulfill that calling. And by doing that, we would definitely see a world that's much better than the one we actually were born into. So with all that being said, I just want to thank everyone for literally supporting us and keep, showing up over and over and over and over again. We're so blessed to have so many of you who listen, share information, give us shout outs. Thank you. If I had 1,000 tongues, I couldn't thank you enough. But as I always do, I want to leave y'all with I am because we are, and thank you.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are.